So this is basically just for those of you who maybe need some extra examples to see them worked out and, you know, kind of be talked through them some more. I am using the problems from that A6 sheet that we did in class today. The numbers correspond perfectly to that sheet, and I will put the answer key on Edmodo so you can use it to practice factoring and also check your answers, make sure you're using it correctly. If you can't get it on Edmodo or whatever's going on, feel free to just send me an email and we'll take care of it. Alright, so let's do a couple of these. This is totally optional. This is not an assignment, just kind of for help. First thing, what does factoring mean? Well, first of all, simplify a polynomial into the product of two binomials. So remember, two terms being multiplied. Next, it could also mean to find the GCF and take that out. So remember when we would have something like this, and then we would have those two left on the inside. This is not factoring in this term, it's factoring in this way where you have the GCF. So a lot of kids tend to wonder then, okay, well, how do I know when to factor, you know, which one am I doing? Well, basically, it's really easy. If you're asked to factor the GCF, or if you need to, it will actually tell you factor out the GCF. It's exactly what it will say. If all it says is just factor, then we're talking about this first one. Okay, so this top one right here, this will just say factor. All right, now if it's multiple choice, like it says here, well, I hope you aren't really asking, because look at the answers. And another thing that I'm sure would follow that question is, well, what if one of the answers is in two polynomials or two binomials and the other one is just the GCF? No, that won't happen. So it's just one or the other. Okay, so for this lesson particularly, every single thing that we do will be two binomials. Okay, so let's do a few. First one, 5a squared minus 22a plus 8. So do you remember the first step? Remember, you want to multiply the first and third. Make sure that you pay attention to those signs. This is a positive 8 and a positive 5. Okay, so multiply 40. And then we do our add portion. And remember that the adding is just the coefficient of the middle term. So add negative 22. Okay, now here's what's really kind of tricky, but also a little, does at the same time make it a little easier. If this number in the multiply column is positive, but the add column is negative, that means that both numbers have to be negative, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's say we take 40 times 1. Okay, we're listing the factors now. Well, 40 times 1 is a positive 40, however, they are both positive, which means we cannot add them and get a negative number. So what that would mean is we have negatives, two negatives. All right? And so let's go ahead and just keep going. So we're just listing all possible factors. So we have negative 40 and negative 1. We have negative 20 times negative 2. And would you look at that? When we add them, this would give us negative 41, but this one is negative 22. And look, it matches. So these are the two numbers that you will use to replace middle term. Okay? So remember that when you replace the middle term, you use the variable that's already there. So we leave 5a squared, but now it will be minus 20a minus 2a plus 8. Okay? So all we did was replace this, because if you added these two back together, you would end up right back at this middle term. Do the grouping. So group your first two, 5a squared minus 20a. Plus sign in between, group your last two, negative 2a plus 8. Factor out the GCF. So what do these have in common? Well, they're both divisible by 5, and they're both divisible by a. So when we divide 5 by 5, we get 1, a squared divided by a would just leave us with 1a, but we don't write the 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. A divided by a is 1. So there's that. Remember that anytime that this is negative, we take the negative out. So the negative, and what else do they have in common? Well, they're both even, so 2. And that leaves us with a minus 4. Remember, positive 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. Group together your GCFs, 5a and negative 2. Directly next to that, group together what's left over, and there's your answer. We have factored it. All answers should look like this, 2 binomials. Okay? If it doesn't, then you are not done. Okay, so here's another one. So multiply first and third terms. So multiply, and you would get 30. Add to get, I don't know why I put 15. I made that up completely. Sorry. And, okay, there we go. Add to get 11. All right, this one might be pretty obvious to you. It is to me because they're right here. 5 times 6 gives you 30, but 5 plus 6 gives you 11. So there you are. Those are the terms you're using. 5z squared plus, now replacing, 5z plus 6z plus 6. Grouping. Group together first two, 5z squared plus 5z, plus sign in between, group together last two. Take out the GCF, so these are both divisible by 5 and also z, leaving this with z plus 1. Now this one, what do they have in common? Well, 6, leaving you with z plus 1. We know that we have factored it or taken the GCF because these are the same. So when we go to write our final answer, we have 5z plus 6 times z plus 1. So there's your answer. And again, you can FOIL or box to check your answer. Okay, and I highly recommend doing that, especially on the quiz. There's no reason you should get anything incorrectly if you check all of your answers. Okay, now these seem to be a little bit more difficult, but it's just a different way of wording what we're already doing. We have the area of a rectangular desktop. Well, first of all, rectangle. We've got this right here, right? The is 6x squared minus 3x minus 3. Okay, the width is 2x plus 1. Okay, now, how do you find the area of a rectangle? Well, we know that the area is just the length times the width. The L is just cursive because otherwise it looks like a 1. So, anyway. So here's basically what this problem is telling you. You're taking this 2x plus 1, multiplying it by another binomial, and it should give you 6x squared minus 3x minus 3. So you just have to find out what are you multiplying 2x plus 1 by to get that. Well, you do have some options. You can set up the box and start with just putting in 6x squared here and minus 3 right here, okay? Because this is what you want. And we know that one of our factors is 2x and then just 1. Well, here's my first question. What would you multiply 2x by to get 6x squared? Well, 2 times 6 would give you 3, and then x times x would give you x squared. So there's the first term of what we're looking for. Now, what times 1 would give you negative 3? Well, negative 3, right? So with those two terms being in there, we don't need to worry about these ones at all. Okay, we don't even need them because here is our second term, 3x minus 3, which means that if our length is, or I'm sorry, our width is this one, that one would represent our length. And then you can check it by foiling or by using that box method again, but not backwards. So work out your answers, or work it out. When you multiply your first terms, you get 3x times 2x, which is 6x squared. Outer, 3x times 1, which is 3x. Inner, negative 3 times 2x, which is negative 6x. And then last is negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3. And if you look at these terms right here, it does in fact simplify to that, so we know for sure that our length is 3x minus 3. Okay? I have another one, don't you worry, because if you're thinking like, what in the world happened? I have another. Okay, so area of 40x squared plus 190x minus 50. All right, so that seems a little intense, right? Big numbers. So first, rectangular means area. Oops, let me get rid of that. That's gross. Is length times the width. Okay, we know the width already. So what we want to find is what times 8x minus 2 would give you all of this. So remember I did the box the last time? And so set up the box. Let me make it a different color so it's maybe a little easier to read. And remember that you only need to focus on the first and third terms. Sorry, it's that one. Okay, so the two boxes in the top right up here, you don't need that. And in the bottom left, you don't need that either. All right? So what we know we're looking for is 40x squared, so our squared term goes up here, and then 50 goes here. So when we are writing out our 8x minus 2, we'll put the 8x here, and then negative 2 right there. Well, think to yourself, what times 8 would give you 40? That would be 5. What times x would give you x squared? That would be x. Okay, now what times negative 2 would give you a positive 50? Well, first thing, remember that negative times negative is a positive. All right, half of 50 is 25, but 25 times negative 2 would give you negative 50. We want it to be a positive, so we have to change them so they're both positive. So, I'm sorry, not change those. What in the world? Delete that from your brain. That would give us a negative 50, so we have to change this to become a negative so that that becomes positive. The reason we can't change this one is because we were given that to begin with, so that becomes a negative. So that means if our width is 8x minus 2, so there's the width, then the length itself is 5x minus 25. There's the length, and FOIL it to check your answer, and ta-da! You're getting smarter by the minute. Ha 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 ha. Even if you didn't want to. Choice. Alright, well, apparently a lot of you were really enjoying the dance party last time, so are you ready? I sure hope so. Get up, dance, and shout.
You know you make me wanna shout, kick my heels up and shout, throw my hands up and shout, throw my head back and shout. Come on now, don't forget to say you will. Don't forget to say yeah, 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 yeah.
Alright, see you tomorrow.